Strange yet interesting. Well, outsider feeling, you always feel kind of strange. There's always that weirdness to it, even though you grow out of it or you mentally prepare yourself out of it. You still feel strange sometimes because, again, they speak up more than you do sometimes. Don't know why. I'm sure there's some scientific reason or psychological reason as to why, but they still talk more, so it still feels a little strange to be there.
Interesting, enlightening, and frustrating. A lot of people make assumptions about me, which is interesting and stuff. And like, I remember in middle school, people used to always like call me, you know what Oreo is? Like, just people in general, like a lot of people.
I think it brought a lot of stereotypes and negative perceptions when it comes to race in classrooms because, I mean, it's not necessarily raised. The issues aren't necessarily brought up, but it's inherently there, and it only brings out more awkwardness into the classroom. I usually stay quiet. Like, I don't, if it's like in a predominantly white setting where I'm like in a classroom filled with white people and then a certain person makes a joke about it, I just stay quiet because I know, like, for some reason they might side with the other, with the white people, with the white person that made the joke. So I just stay quiet because I don't want to start a problem or drama that might cause, you know, like disruption in the environment we're in.
In my opinion, the most common facet of the non white experience is one of isolation. In a world overtaken by white dominated spaces, not feeling understood or supported, especially as a young person, is extremely prevalent.
Well, in my I went to El Sol, which was a primarily Mexican Latino place, but the only people that would go to like ATIP and stuff like that were white people. So going into a place where you only saw white people go to advanced classes and then being there yourself was definitely strange. It felt like, again, like an outsider, like you weren't supposed to be there. A couple brown faces, not many though. And so you cling on to the hope that you're supposed to be there and try not to let like the competitiveness of it all get to you at first, of course. I think to an extent it can be healthy. There's like a chart, I don't remember what it's called, but pressure and stress, and there's an optimal point. I think personally, to where I was, it was a little unhealthy, where it was to the point where maybe my mental health definitely suffered because of it, and I definitely think it can be healthy, but I think in the sense of being not white and being in a classroom where it's primarily white, it can be pretty unhealthy, especially if you let it get to you. Yeah.
I don't know. I just like, I remember I used to start not liking like, I don't know. I just didn't like being me for a little bit. Like I used to just want to be white so bad, but then I just stopped like after a while. Cause like in public and like all that stuff and like in my family, we just didn't really like they never really made made me feel like I had to act a certain way to be black or like be the way I am. They're just fine with it. People used to say stuff about it a lot, so
As a person of color who has been involved in advanced education programs such as Academically Talented Youth Program and Kalamazoo Area Math and Science Center since 7th grade, I've had more than my fair share of white dominated spaces. At my school, Kalamazoo Central, 45 to 50% of students are black, 30 to 35% are white, 9 to 12% are Hispanic, and 2 to 3% are Asian. However, when it comes to AP class composition, 50% of students are white, 30% are black, 7% are Hispanic, and 5% are Asian. Additionally, according to ProPublica.org, white students are 2.2 times more likely than black students and 1.7 times more likely than Hispanic students to be enrolled in an AP class. While these statistics are concerning, they paint a pretty horrible picture of what it's like to be a student of color at Kalamazoo Central. I haven't even begun to mention the extremely prevalent poverty and criminalization that happens every day at the school that continues to negatively affect students. If I were to do so, this video would be hours long. But these numbers kind of speak for themselves, right? There's a disproportionate number of white students in AP classes at Kalamazoo Central. All that schools have to do is bring in more students of color into advanced spaces, maybe even starting young so that students have a solid foundation, allowing them to succeed in education. Additionally, more diverse students allow for more discussions about race in the classroom, where we get to be in charge of it instead of being forced to listen to people who don't even understand the experiences of people of color.
I think it's where, I think an ideal discussion about race is where people of color talk and white people listen. Because oftentimes there's like white people who talk about race issues, and it's just stating the facts. It's stating the obvious of what the people of color have been stating for ages, you know. So, where POCs could take advantage of these advanced programs that we weren't like allowed to or like felt included in, and where white people could have more exposures to our cultural backgrounds and languages, because diversity has never been a barrier. So a barrier for like building relationships with people. Just because you're a different race doesn't mean that you're not allowed to like create a relationship with other people in a different racial group.
For me, I've thought about this. I don't think there is an ideal. I think it just depends on the people in there, the dynamics that they bring. Depends how that dynamic goes. Personally, I think I would just like someone to listen more than they do talk. Usually people in class that we're with, especially white people, think they have a place to say certain things about races that isn't really their right to say, because they're not that race. But I think it'd be nice to be listened to more than to be talked over, because that defeats the purpose of the discussion in the first place. Yeah, it'd be nice to have them more of a support and less of a, I don't know how to put into words, dictator, I guess. More of someone to listen and less someone to be over.
Well, yeah, I feel like one of like how the conversation should look is like people need it, like people of color should be more educated before like they start having these whole discussions and stuff about like race when they have no idea how it feels to be that race, you know? Like I remember they had a conversation about like the N-word in the AP bio class, and like they're like talking about how no one should say the word. I know it's like it's a bad word, but like it should be a right for Black people to be able to reclaim the N-word if they want to, or say if they want to, because they've been put down for like hundreds of years with that word. And just because other white people can't just not say it doesn't mean like whole Black community should have to like not be able to say it.
Students of color deserve to be upheld for the brilliant, successful kids that they are. And frankly, it's unfair that Black and brown students have to go through so much in these white spaces. But the solution is simple, and the payoff is grand. So we're done here, right? Just kidding. We're not done. I'm not going to dispute that students of color aren't brilliant and successful, but is this the goal that high schoolers should be reaching for? It's common knowledge that the school system is already extremely toxic and ineffective, placing high value on standardized tests, no mental health help for students, underpaying teachers, among so many other extremely prevalent issues. Bringing students of color into these advanced areas purely for demographic change ignores the other issues affecting them. Should we be convincing students of color that this is the only way to make it? In order to win the 1968 election, Richard Nixon famously employed the Southern strategy, banking on rampant white supremacy in the post-Jim Crow South to win the presidency. During this, he also introduced the concept of Black capitalism, pointing Black people to the free market and wishing them luck. An article by Mehrsa Barrett-Darren titled "The Real Roots of Black Capitalism" writes, "Black capitalism was so politically appealing, every administration since Mr. Nixon's has adopted it in some form. Black capitalism morphed into Ronald Reagan's enterprise zone policy, Bill Clinton's new market tax credits, and Barack Obama's promise zones. Black people now and during Nixon's time have been coming up with equitable plans and solutions for systemic racism, especially in housing and economics, but very rarely have they been implemented. These plans for equality have only been ways to either further oppress black people or attempt to show the white supremacist systems in place as equally fair with the new introduced policy. Convincing people of color, especially black people, that the only way to succeed is making one's way to the top of white capitalist systems designed to harm them at every step has been a practice since before the Civil War. This happens in the school system as well. Students of color, especially black and brown students, are continually screwed over by the American school system. This is due to issues like resource inequities, educator bias, lack of communication within families, and more. Trying to fill diversity quotas and implementing systems of affirmative action exists so that the few who are actually able to succeed are placed on a pedestal of achievement and are pointed to as one of the good ones. Attempting to fill advanced classrooms with students of color who fulfill a standard established by ACTs, SATs, and AP exams only expose those young students to a system that is fully policed by these white supremacist ideals. In addition to that, students of color who don't fit the narrow standard of success as established by these white institutions are completely left behind and are not offered any support or encouragement. School only allows for a specific kind of learning, and AP classes have been shown to not allow students to develop critical thinking skills or to spark their creativity. Focusing solely on racial demographics in advanced education only reinforces the extremely harmful systems that are in place today, designed for a very specific kind of student who will hopefully grow to be a very specific kind of worker who exists solely for profit. Bringing in students of color only fixes one aspect of the problem, and only allows for more trauma and struggle to be experienced by the children from a system that is built on racism, misogyny, classism, ableism, and anti-Semitism. This is not the solution. Originally, I brought in 3 of my friends to talk about their experiences in advanced education, to show a personal look into how toxic it is to exist as a person of color in a predominantly white space. However, during a conversation with my mother, Ashley Lanting, who works as an assessment and quality improvement manager at Kalamazoo Youth Development Network, she pointed out that AP classes in environments like ATIP and CAMSI only measure one facet of intelligence and only have one measure of success. They fail to realize how many other strengths Black, Brown, LGBTQ, neurodivergent, and poor students have outside of test taking. Additionally, these students have to overcome so many more hurdles than their privileged peers, and an AP exam can't portray that. Expecting all students to be exactly the same and to all succeed in the same way in one system is extremely unrealistic. In a system that is designed to make us fail, pointing to the rare ones that are able to succeed is a fallacy. Painting specific achievements in classes as magical spaces where the rare person of color gets to reach the top of a white capitalist system is false. My friends of color and I in AP classes do have access to more resources, such as smaller classes, more educated and supported teachers, and college help. We are placed above our peers in regular classes because we have fulfilled this arbitrary educational standard. Especially as an Asian American person, I benefit from the model minority stereotype. Unlike my Black and brown peers, I'm partially seen as belonging in the advanced space. However, regardless of level of education or ethnicity, we are all subject to the same white supremacist capitalist systems and ideals. These experiences are ones that shouldn't have to happen, but they also shouldn't be ignored. White supremacy and capitalism promote this idea that all of us can eventually reach the top of the ladder. That is how these systems of power stay in place. This should not be the goal. The goal should be getting rid of the ladder and arbitrary ranking system altogether. As adults, it is your job to listen to us and to both attempt to understand the struggle and listen when we give you a solution. As white people, it is your job to listen to people of color, especially Black voices, and to both attempt to understand the struggle and to listen when you are given a solution. Teenagers of color need resources, we need care, but above all, we need you to listen.
I would probably tell her to not let herself get competitive. You are supposed to be there and you're there for a reason. Someone told you you're supposed to be there because they wanted you there, and you shouldn't second guess that. You're there, you're gonna be okay, and do the best you can because it's hard, but Yeah, that's what I would tell her. Mr. Germain told me a couple times last year, because last year I took AP Lang, and we did like a lot of the progress checks, and those are like 3 questions. So if you get one wrong, you get a 66 like automatically. So that was kind of rough. But I remember one time he was just sat me down. He goes, "I wanted you here. You're supposed to be here. Like, don't feel any less." So that was really encouraging. Thanks, Mr. Germain.
I would tell her to. I would say that it's okay to make mistakes. They are part of the process. You don't have to compare yourself to other people. And in time, you will learn and you will find yourself in that. That's it.
I'll tell myself that I should accept me for who I am, you know? And you don't have to be grouped into like those stereotypes. You don't have to think just because you want to be your race doesn't mean you have to be like the stereotypes that everyone else has for that race, you know?
Like, just sum up our experiences, because often I think there's like a stereotype as to what these classes are supposed to look like or supposed to feel like, and at least for someone who is not white or it's Mexican specifically, it doesn't look like that, and it doesn't feel like that, and I think it'd be nice to have that, have other people know that it's not just what certain people make it out to be. It's more than just that. I don't think I've ever seen anyone of color talk about the experience and have it be correlated to what other people say it is. And it becomes comforting to know that it's not going to look the same for us. And it becomes comforting knowing that you're not alone in your own feelings. So I think